Hello everyone, Wolfie here, and this is the second part of our 3D animation series in After Effects using the Cinema 4D renderer. If you haven't seen the first episode yet, go check it out. That's where you can get to learn the real basics of creating a model. And now we're animating said model, and our model is our phone. So you can see the display here. If I select my null, we know we can rotate this. So let's do something of that. So I'm going to go and just put it on its side. Let's see what we can do here. Create a keyframe, put one here, and let's just spin the phone around like this, and then put it at 0 degrees and see how that looks with an ease. If you already don't know how ease, you probably should. That's an important thing to know. Let's see how that looks. So there we go. We've added keyframes to our phone. Let's say that's a bit too sharp of an ease. Let's just smooth it out a bit. Let's really make it pop out. So I'll just, there we go. So now when it rotates, because we want some nice stop positions and some good end positions too, so that lands like that. So there we go. I think it looks pretty good. You can even see now those reflection effects kind of coming into use along with the diffuse, because when it rotates around you can see obviously the back lighting up, but this logo lights up way more than anything else over there, so you can see that really shines. Another thing about how reflections work kind of based on the color, so the reason why this camera bump wasn't doing anything is because it was pitch black. So now, if I increase this, the reflection will really start coming through. That kind of dictates just how bright the reflection is and how tinted the reflection is, so you kind of want to be careful with the color of your origin object. You could even fade something onto it if you really want to just specify a color for it, but there's no real point if you're just tinting it. Now why don't we have a little bit of fun with this model? Let's detach the camera and make it fly on. Yep, that's what we're doing. So, pretty simple stuff here. Our final keyframe is going to land, I'd say, at this point. And then our start keyframes. Now these are just going to be the lenses, and then we'll move the actual camera shielding afterwards, just so that it kind of melds into the phone, let's say. Because the thing is, if you change keyframes with the null object, both of them will occur at the same time, and that will create this really cool parallax effect, which we're about to create here with these coming through. And they're gonna go away from the phone, so I'm gonna say 125, and then I'll just do a little bit of a sharp-ish ease out. And you can see that in action there. Those lenses kind of flip on. Not very easy to see. I'll enable transparency here. There they are. And they just kind of slide on. Shump. Let's do something a little bit fancy with it. Let's offset those keyframes. And I'll just make them occur a little bit before that happens so that it's a bit smoother. And then we can do the camera glass with it too. So our camera glass, I'll just name this camera glass for now because I'm gonna have a very hard time figuring out what that is in a minute. And I'll just put this a little bit before those lenses come on. And it needs to be above the lenses because the lenses are popping up quite a lot. This needs to pop out a bit less, so let's go with 45. It's good to get similar easings on all of these, but if you want different easings, you can have different easings. If you want chicken nuggets, get chicken nuggets.
If you don't, then don't.
Okay, yeah, that camera glass, you can't really see it moving at all, can you? Let's pop that out a little more. Okay, there we go. That's visible. And let's do the same thing for our flash. I'll make this one a lot longer because why not? I'll even make it pop out loads. So there we go, we've got our camera detaching out there. That looks kinda cool. You know what, let's do something fun with the logo as well, why not? We'll make it detach away from the phone as it fades out, because you're not really going to see the logo, so let's point it away. And just make it so that it's not visible even if it is jumping away. And now when we play it, oh look, the logo jumps away. Why don't I make that match with when it finally comes out here? So I'll put my keyframe in the center and make it a bit of an ease in out. There we go, you can see that logo just bouncing out, and then boom, there's the phone. And let's go put the display, and I will set my second keyframe over there and put my display all the way up there, because you won't really be able to see it here, but you will be able to start seeing it here. So that's where our keyframe is going to begin as it moves onto the phone screen. And once again, let's do another ease. Phone screen was already visible, so let's kinda make it jump out of the phone and then jump back in. So look at my origin keyframe and just bounce it out. I'll make it a bit more of a jumpy bounce so you can really see it. Boing! Let's make it a bit more crazy, yeah? Let's make it pop out even more. And you could do some fun stuff with that too. You could, actually I may as well show you this since we're working with a composition. Compositions, solids and similar, have a mode in them, which is very, very cool. It's curvature. You can bend an object. So as you can see, our phone screen's now bending. This is going to be very nice for some cool little parallax effects, and it can bend outwards and inwards, so let's mess with that a little bit. So since it's going like that, we're going to make it go inwards. You can increase the segment so that it's got more polygons in the actual curvature. Good for if you don't want it looking like crap. And I'll make our first curvature begin here and 0, and we'll just kind of match these keyframes position around here. There we go, a little bit of bending. I'll end the curvature a bit before the keyframe so it isn't breaking or anything. There we go. You can even see that little bit of bending. And I'll increase that bend a little bit more so it's a bit more crazy. There we go. Look at that. Screen bends and it just kind of flaps back on. And then we could even like change what's going on the screen with that, so let's kind of represent that impact by just making a little rainbow. Hue saturation, I'll just quickly. There we go. So, see the phone pop out, see the little elements come in, and rainbows. You could even go as far as detailing the insides of the phone underneath, or just making a little black plane underneath it, because why not? But I think that's more than fine for now. Let's begin scene building, because it needs somewhere to live, so let's just scale down our phone a bit and put it in an environment where it can thrive. I am going to start by creating a background. So this is not going to be a part of the 3D scene. You could make a whole room if you wanted, but that's going to take us too much time, and I'd rather just create a nice background. So it's quite a dark phone, so we'll create a relatively dark background too, and there's obviously going to be a surface beneath it, so that can start there. We'll do a little grey up to maybe a bit of a more white kind of colour. I'll use ramp scatter to reduce any possible artifacting in the gradient. So let's check that in full quality. And now there's a background behind the phone, but that doesn't really do much at the moment until we've added a surface beneath it. I'm gonna move the phone a little bit upwards, just mess around with it until it's about right. And let's put a floor. So I'll put that there, and I'll just call it floor. We'll set it as a 3D layer, and we'll rotate it to be about 90 degrees. And let's move it down just a little bit. And then we'll scale it up so that it fills the bottom of the scene, like so. So now we have this. And from a top-down view, it's just in the middle of that floor, which is exactly what we wanted. So now, we arrive with that. And you can kind of see the reflection starts to function here, as these different parts of the display kind of shimmer around. That's for reflection working. And I'll do a very good example of a reflection, because you've probably been wondering, has those reflective things even been doing anything? I'm not seeing no reflections. Now we're about to see some real reflections. Reflection intensity, like so. Let's reduce the sharpness a little bit, because you can even blur your reflective floor, and you can see it there. There's the phone by the reflection. How close does it get to the floor? Because we could even move the floor up a bit so that it's nearly touching it. There it is. Ooh, and then you can even see the body of the phone there. That's quite nice. Now it is completely black, but that's fine. We can increase our diffuse a little bit, increase our specular intensity and shininess, and then reduce our reflection intensity so that the white returns. The thing about reflections is you can't easily have just a really white color and a reflection at the same time. You need some pretty advanced trickery to make that work, but we don't really need to do that. And there's no shadows. That's an issue. We want shadows. So let's verify that both of our objects are ready to take shadows. So this is accepting of shadows, our floor, that's fine. Now we need to set the objects of our phone to cast shadows. So I go to my materials and I enable cast shadows. The shadow would appear if the light was pointing at a point where a shadow would be produced, except it isn't. So let's just adjust my camera a little bit. Let's set some other objects to cast shadows as well. Contents, material options, cast shadows. And those are only the real things we need to worry about now. The others you could cast shadows with, but I don't think it would make very much use, and it would probably end up lagging your computer more than necessary. And we'll go into our light and check if this can also cast shadows. Nope, it can't. We need to set the light. Oh, there it is. And the light itself can also handle the way the shadows are handled themselves. So if I just move my light a little bit, just so the shadows are more prominent in the scene. And there they are. Let's go back into our lights settings. And here I can increase the shadow darkness. So if you don't want your shadows to be all too dark, you can make them not too dark, or you can make them extremely dark. But we're just going to use 100%. And with a bit of shadow diffusion, the shadows end up a little bit more faded. So this is good if you wanted more of a faded shadow from the depth of the light. This would be better with ray tracing, but obviously there's no ray tracing here, it's only screen space reflections. So the preview with reflections will be a lot slow, because it's obviously got to render those screen space reflections anyways. And there it is. The display kind of goes in the floor, that's not very nice. Let's move that down a little bit. There we go. There's our phone. And let's mess with the camera as well. So let's put our camera back, since I did remove it when we were switching over to manipulating the object alone. And our new null layer will be our camera control. So once again, put that on there. This will now rotate around the entire scene as a camera. So let's keyframe this too. And here's a cool thing. Scale will act as camera zoom. So I am going to set this as A, so it's going to zoom in and then it's going to zoom out as it rotates. So let's do that. And now it's zooming out and it's rotating. And I'll make the zoom a little bit more offset. I think we're going to have to work on the display a little bit. If I hide those Venetian blinds, you can actually get an idea for reflection here. So our display is reflective enough. We just need to set our black color as a bit more of a gray so that the reflections actually show through. Because like I say, black don't reflect. Now when we put that back, there's the reflection a bit more clearer now. Oh yeah, there it is. That's looking quite good. Just increase the depth of that a bit more. And you might have noticed a bit of grain on the reflection. Unfortunately, there's no solving that in quarter quality. If you go in full quality, this is how it'll look on the actual render. So there will still be a bit of grain. You could probably get away with denoising that, but that is kind of just a problem with After Effects in general. That looks quite nice in full quality, I've got to say. Let's make those reflections a bit more interesting. Let's add some shapes around the scene, why not? So I'll just add ourselves a circle. So 800, 800. Let's make our circle a bit of a green. Let's add some colors. And I'll just scale that down. Set that as 90, and I'll just place it somewhere on the ground. So there's no real easy way to make spheres. I will show you eventually, but for now I don't want to, because it's not as easy as it might seem to someone who's not quite experienced with this, because it's very low level. It's not very good 3D, if I'm going to be honest. And that's our extruded circle. We'll just get rid of that. And I'll add a bit of bevel as well, a bit of convex. There it is. Over in the corner, and that's now being reflected with it. Hell, I could even make it a bit more glassy by reducing the opacity. That's another thing that's cool. Since it renders each face, those faces are also going to deal with the opacity. And now, the scene looks like this. That's just the beginning of stuff we can do here. Let's add another one of these shapes. Bit over to the right, maybe a little bit smaller. But, at the expense of being a little bit smaller, it's a lot taller. So instead of making our extrusion depth ridiculous sizes, we'll just use our scale. So in here I'll open it up, and extrusion depth, we don't want to change that. I'll open up our shape layer 3 and just increase that value, and let's give it a unique color. Let's give it a blue. Let's put a similar one right beside it. Just a little bit taller, and I'll go with a purple. Let's add something else, something new. Let's add a hexagon. Go with a hexagon, and we'll make this hexagon a nice orange. Once again, 3D. Rotate it around. Put it on the floor. What was the opacity of this? That was 45. So therefore, that is also 35. And back there. Open it up, go into our geometry options. And extrude it out a bit, and then we'll use scale just to make it a lot larger. There we go. Some nice shapes in our scene. Just to add on with the phone. I think this could do with a little more colour because it's very dull. We've already got our colour bits, but it's looking quite dull, so I am going to add a fill. And we're going to tint these reflections just a little bit blue instead of the dull grey. And let's do something similar with the background. We'll just set it to be blue and saturate it a lot. Actually, let's link it up with the reflection and put that right around there in the center of the reflection. So then you kind of get this median between it. And then we'll just saturate that again. Make it blue. Maybe make it a bit less saturated. And that is that. What I like to do is I separate my 3D from my 2D. So this is our 3D part, and then this background here is our 2D part. And with that, you can create this kind of just distance. 30, and we get this from it. I think the phone screen's way too dark at the end. Let's remedy that by adding a better lighting setup. So I'll just duplicate this light and I'll position it right above the phone, like so. Point of interest also matters here because that's where the light is facing. So I'll just make it face that way, and I think that spotlight is a bit too bright for my liking. So I'll just reduce the intensity of it just a bit. And then I'll set this back to our new base color produced from it. Now let's see how it looks. With the new light in place, you get to see the screen pop out with all its reflective glory. And there's our phone. Shapes aren't perfect in the background, that's for sure. I'll just maybe do a bit of better job at that. Hey. You know, make it a bit more even. I could use a proportional grid all similar, but nah. That's looking better. I'm liking that, and then you can combine 2D things. So I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna call it my phone, and I'm going to change my font settings quickly. I'm gonna just use the Manrope font for this. It's a pretty nice font, so I'm gonna scale it up. I'm just gonna call it the Wolfie My Phone. Sounds like a very dumb name for a phone, but we'll go with it. This is just to demonstrate how you can combine 2D and 3D. So once it's reached this part, gotta say, reflective rendering is not easy. I usually end up turning off shadows and reflections just so it's not as crazy for my computer to deal with. And then this is the part where we can slide our text in. Bit of an ease out, bit of an ease in, and let's see how it looks. The Wolfie My Phone. And that is the end of the second part of our tutorial series of going over 3D animation and After Effects. In the next episode, we're going to be looking further into more parts of 3D and creating more shapes, such as pyramids, because I haven't demonstrated that yet. Pyramids, not what you think, not as easy. And the same goes for unique cubes, where compositions wrap around the cube, and similar things like that, eventually moving on to spheres, and then we'll create more advanced sort of scenes like that. But for now, I think you should do some homework and mess with this yourself, change some things around, maybe see what you can do on your own. It's all about experimentation when it comes to learning these sort of things. So yeah, have a good day. See you later.